Uh, okay, so then should we begin? I'll just introduce Kishore very quickly, and then shall we begin?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
It's fine with me, like whenever.
Okay. Okay, great. So okay,
Yeah.
then we'll start. So yeah, hello everyone. We welcome Dr. Kishore Bharti to the Secure seminar today. He completed his integrated bachelor's and master's from IISER Mohali and his PhD from CQT Singapore. He has carried out important work on quantum algorithms for near-term devices, and he's currently a postdoc at QUICS at the University of Maryland. So his talk today is on NISQ algorithms for semi-definite programming. So Kishore, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Srinivas, and thanks, Professor Das, and and everyone, I mean, for the invitation and coming here and getting some time to lead my talk. Maybe Sai might have listened to this talk before, partially, but yeah, I think something will be here that will be new to most of the people, and also they will appreciate a new way to think about yeah, actually I'm working on one of the project with Sai, where we are using these ideas as a future work. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I mean, as Srinivasa mentioned, recently I moved to Joint Center for Quantum Information Computer Science, which is also called QUICS. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here at the Secure seminar. Yeah. Actually, if you want, a quick summary of the, what we did here, yeah, I mean, you can go through this Twitter thread, and actually I put the thread also towards the end, just to give a, a two slide summary, in case, later it becomes, I would say too much to follow and all. So maybe, we can, I mean, the thread should be helpful. Yeah. And yeah, it's very simple work. I mean, we just apply, a simple idea from optimization theory in the setup of NISQ devices. And the message is very simple. I mean, the message is that depending on what you optimize, you could have local minima or no local minima problem. So if you can see here, right? I mean, what we do with the currently available quantum computers is that we take help of a classical computer to optimize some parameters, of the quantum computer. And one could do that, by optimizing various parameters, so you could a general ansatz, you can write that, as a hybrid density matrix ansatz, which is, some classical parameters beta, and then you have some quantum states, on the quantum computer with some parameter theta. And let's say if you want to minimize certain function, certain function, functional, whatever, like this expectation value of the Hamiltonian, then in this case you could try to minimize over theta the way regular variational quantum algorithm guys do. And they suffer from many issues, this local minima problem. And yeah, it was believed that in classical machine learning, for example, local minima problem has not been an issue. So why worry much, when you go for the quantum case? But somehow, the quantum case is, it's really an issue, and a lot of research has been done recently where they say that the location of the local minima, and I mean, it's really a mess, and it's better, if one bypasses the local minima problem, then you do not depend on the initialization. So if on the other hand, if you optimize your beta, you have a nice landscape. So you do not have this initialization issue. So this work was done with my good friend Tobias and my PhD supervisors Vlatko Bedral and Leong Chuan Kwek. Yeah, while I was at CQT. Yeah. So please, like stop me at any point, I mean, yeah, like, and yeah, like just to make this talk, like interactive. And yeah, I would prefer questions, like along the way as I talk. Okay. So, so yeah, like, basically the goal is that, like currently there has been like, a lot of funding and a lot of, research interest towards like getting something, basically that, I mean, these quantum devices that we are building at the moment, like for example, IBM recently, like they unveiled 123 qubit quantum device. And then I think Lukin and others, they have some 256 qubit, some, uh, like this Rydberg, yeah, like processor. And and like nice experiments are being done continuously. And and like one of the experiment, like which is like, which has caught the attention is this computational quantum advantage experiment, or infamously, like quantum supremacy experiment. But most of these experiments, like they are based on random circuit sampling tasks. And like one needs to move beyond random circuit sampling task, because those tasks, they do not have any practical relevance, and they are not going to pay the bills. So I mean, it's like if we do not find a nice application, let's say either for academic purpose or for industrial purpose, then there is a good possibility that quantum winter can arrive. I mean, these are not my words, but like Preskill says. And yeah, like so we need to move beyond quantum supremacy, and like the hunt for basically useful quantum devices, or the applications basically. So the goal is, like how to do something useful in this era of noisy intermediate scale quantum devices. And so the currently available quantum devices that we have, they are, like not error corrected, like they are noisy, we have like imperfect control, like, yeah, like the gates, like they are noisy. I mean, basically there's no fault tolerance. So and they are also like, of moderate size, so they're called intermediate scale. And this so the current era basically is called, like commonly known as noisy intermediate scale quantum era. And this word was coined by John Preskill. And in his this famous article, basically published in Quantum, he talks about, like what are the prospects. And recently, like, in the last few years, a lot of work has been done in this direction. And basically it led to many different nice algorithm design, and like benchmarking tools, understanding the potential of these algorithms, what are the different challenges. And yeah, so even before we have, like an algorithm which can, a computer which can run Shor's algorithm, like those for fault tolerant devices, uh, we, like, researchers managed to, like write large volume of works where they talked about uh, how to do, like something useful, like basically nothing useful has been done so far, like arguably, but lot of research was done. And definitely we have a good understanding of like what can be done with these devices. And recently I was fortunate to be a part of an international team with researchers from Harvard, MIT, and Toronto, and yeah, like places in Europe, and CQT, um, where we like, summarized these algorithms. And yeah, like, these algorithms, they are known as, like the algorithm for such devices are known as noisy intermediate scale quantum algorithms. So it recently got accepted just like a couple of weeks back. And yeah, like it should be published in a month or something. Like the proofs are just coming in a week or something maybe. Okay, so yeah, like I would invite you to have a look at this review paper that where we compile many of these algorithms, and yeah, and let us know, okay, maybe something could be added as a development, like. Okay, so so basically the goal is like to have something useful, right? And we want not quantum advantage, like in the sense of circuit sampling, which is like good. I mean, like it it's nice for the fundamental region of extra charge during thesis, but I mean we want to do something useful, so for the, the fundamental part is okay, but what we really need is like some nice application, like for something that researchers or the people in industry they care. So if we really look at the like this the birth of this field of quantum computation, it came from one of the uh, one of the ideas, from Richard Feynman, where, like he says that let's use these devices, like for, let's use quantum mechanics to, simulate, yeah, like nature, because, like nature is quantum mechanical. And, and if you really try to see, it's believed that maybe the first applications of these devices might come in quantum simulation. There are also other nice areas like combinatorial optimization, quantum chemistry, machine learning, and others, like where a lot of work has been done. And yeah, like might see some, nice applications of mm, these algorithms, yeah, like for the problems in these different uh, areas. Yeah, also it's good to keep exploring different areas, because it might happen that quantum advantage might come in one area first and in the other later. And our priority, like unless we have the an actual demonstration of quantum advantage, it's quite difficult to really like gauge, like though it's believed that quantum simulation might be the first, but then recent works on machine learning, like by groups at Caltech, they are suggesting that the machine learning also is like quite promising. Okay, so one of the prominent algorithms, like which is like kind of led to birth of this field of NISQ algorithms, you could say, or no, you could say like variational quantum algorithms, is this idea of variational quantum eigensolver, VQE. Like it's a very beautiful idea, and it has it has its roots in variational principle of quantum mechanics. So many of you might be familiar with VQE. The idea is that knowing the variational principle of quantum mechanics, that let's what we could do, that we could think of an ansatz between some tunable parameters, and yeah, like we could tune the parameters of that ansatz and try to calculate the expectation value of the Hamiltonian. And because we have the guarantee that the ground state is the minimum energy eigenstate, like even if you keep tuning, you cannot go below the ground state energy, because that's the minimum, so you cannot go below that. So the idea is that, let's say, you can try your best, and with respect to your ansatz space, you can try to find the best approximation of the ground state. But as like it happens in any area, like for example in machine learning also, like the difficulty is in representation. Once you can represent your ansatz nicely, then half of the task is done basically. And with quantum system, the problem of representation is a bit tricky because representation can take like a lot of space. So the idea of VQE is to use a quantum device to represent the quantum state. And it could have, like polynomially many tunable parameters. So for example, you could have your quantum state psi theta, which depends on, like a set of parameters theta. And then you initialize that, this quantum state on the quantum computer. You estimate expectation value of Hamiltonian, which we say like a loss function. The idea comes from machine learning where it's considered loss. You want to minimize the loss. So here, for example, you want to minimize the Hamiltonian expectation value. And then you update the parameter. So you tune theta, you change it. But then how do you change it? I mean, the way people change it, that, it's done through a non-convex optimization procedure. And then you change it, and then, like there is this feedback loop, and then they, like to and fro process. And yeah, like it's a very nice algorithm, but there are, like certain issues with VQE, which, yeah, like I will discuss. Yeah. So one of the issue you could say, when you update the parameters, the optimization is not mentioned, like, I mean, like it's not a well characterized optimization procedure. Okay. The other issue, the you have to, like, come back again and go through this. So then the classical computer will do something, then the quantum computer will do something, and there's this feedback loop. So let's say if you're trying to access your devices, like on a cloud, this can lead to, long wait times, and, like often while the quantum computer is doing something, classical computer is often sitting idle, and it can take like a lot of time. So for example, on a regular day, let's say if you're trying to access IBM quantum computers, there are, like many pending jobs and all. And this kind of, like feedback loop can like, take a lot of time. So this is okay. I mean, like, let's say you can have a dedicated computer, but still, like there are too many calls that are being made. And because with every call, like you try to update the parameter, and because it's a non-convex optimization, I mean, like there are also not guarantees about how many iterations it will take. And so basically there are no guarantees about how many times this feedback loop will continue. And this is one of the reasons that, like, I mean, you could say that the VQs have not been, like, even though, like, 7, 8 or 8 years of, like since their inception, like, I mean, like we do not have, like you could say that no proper quantum advantage, like demonstration has been shown using VQE. And yeah, like there are obviously many challenges, like, this problem of finding ground state it's a difficult problem even for a quantum computer. So coming up with a nice ansatz itself is a difficult task. But but then on top of that, these issues like optimization via the non-convex optimization procedure, and then this feedback loop, like adds more problem on top of that. And to talk about roadblocks, like, I mean, one of the famous roadblocks, which are there are, like this, the barren plateaus, like, which is, if I say, like, in simple, I mean, like it's basically saying that the landscape, like it's barren, like it's flat, like, for most of the initializations. And and even gradient free approaches, like so basically when it's flat, basically your the gradient is 0, and the expectation value of the gradient is 0, and the variance basically that decays exponentially with number of qubits. So you can use Chebyshev inequality, and you can show that, like basically even entry wise, like when it's basically it's a flat landscape almost. And because of that, like the training really becomes difficult. And people have shown that you could have many different ways of, like to have barren plateaus. For example, you could have like noise induced barren plateau, you could have entanglement induced barren plateau. Yeah. And we showed that, like this paper, like recently got published in NG. We showed that yeah, you could have even problem induced barren plateau. And yeah, like, but yeah, we were working in the setup of linear system of equation. And yeah, even gradient pre-optimization techniques, they fail to mitigate the effect of barren plateau. So lots of nice work was done by Coles and company from Los Alamos, and like currently we have a good understanding of like this barren plateau issue. Uh, but like, I mean, barren plateau is one thing. The other issue is, this non-convexity. Like, non-convexity has, like, now it's recently, like it's really being appreciated in the literature. So for example, recently it was shown that, like the trained variational quantum algorithms is NP-hard. And one of the reasons for NP-hard, I mean, as shown in this paper by Bittel and Kleisch, is that we have many, we have many local minima. And even if your solution is contained there, like, in your ansatz space, you will not be able to find it, because, like, I mean, it's the problem is, like, I mean, finding the solution is NP-hard. So like when you try to train using variational quantum algorithms, and this is really this is an issue to worry. I mean, like, why? Because that this NP hardness is not coming from the fact that you are trying to solve a big problem, like, finding the ground state of Hamiltonian, but it's coming just from the optimization. Like, for example, in this paper, they showed that even if you have, like, you try to take a problem which can be easily simulated on a classical device. So if you take a problem from BPP, like, the class of problem which can be efficiently, like, solved on the classical computer, even for those problems, if you try to map it to a VQE and try to, like, optimize, the parameters, because of the mapping, because of this non-convex mapping, like, I mean, I talked in the beginning, this makes things quite worse. Like, I mean, and even if your solution is there, you will not be able to find it. Even if you have, like, polynomially many parameters. So that's an issue, because we have, like, we are optimizing our polynomial many parameter. The ansatz is good. Let's say for some reason somebody has given us ansatz based on the domain knowledge or something, but just because of a bad landscape, we are not able to find the answer. So yeah, like this. And then there are, like, the nice work, like, which came from Eric and Squitch from MIT, where he talks about, the landscape corresponding to these algorithms, where there is, there is this the landscape is very bad unless, like, you are over parameterized. So to really have a, so they talk about a certain transition where they say that all local minima are concentrated far from the global minima, and then the moment you are over parameterized, all local minima are concentrated near the global minima. So basically you need to over parameterize to, like, really solve the issue. And in many cases, like, I mean, because if you include too many parameters to have a nice landscape, it can make things worse. Okay, so because then, like, you need to update all of them and it will take time. So it's an issue. Yeah. So so basically, I mean, I think I have set the floor, like, I mean, the motivation, like, for the work. And it's a very simple idea. So, like, it should not take much time to, like, give the punchline, discuss the punchline. So the idea is this, like, I mean, so we are going to talk about, like, an algorithm, like, which is okay, I will not discuss the details, I mean, but at a very high level, like, I mean, we are going to discuss an algorithm for semi-definite programming. And why should one be interested in semi-definite programming? So, like, people know about linear programming, like, from, like, I mean, all of us, we read that in our high school and all. So you have some linear objective, you have some, like, linear set of constraints, and you try to, like, solve it. And these arise, like, many operations research and in many different areas. And then you can generalize the idea of linear programming to something called, semi-definite programming. In semi-definite programming, basically, what we have is, so here you have, like these vectors. Now you talk in terms of matrices. So you have, like minimized trace of Cx such that trace of X equal to Bi, and X should be positive semi-definite. Now, semi-definite programming, basically, if I talk about it, like it basically, so you have this cone of positive semi-definite matrices, like, so cone is basically, like some, you can think about some set where, like if X belongs to that set, then for any scalar theta, which is non-negative, theta times X should also belong in the set. So you can think of it like an ice cream cone or something. Yeah, like you keep on a scaling and it should, like just belong in that set. Yeah. So for example, a set of positive semi-definite matrices is a cone because you can multiply, like any non-negative scalar with positive semi-definite matrices, and they remain positive semi-definite. So you have this cone and a positive semi-definite matrices, and then you have this slice, which comes from trace of Aix equal to Bi. So you have some affine slice through this cone, and you try to minimize or like often maximize, basically like optimize a linear function, and you can see it has similar structure like a linear programming, that more general. And it found applications in theoretical computer science, control theory, operations research, state discrimination, dimension witness, device certification, machine learning. For example, like the when we talk about support vector machine, that's basically, I mean, there we are trying to solve, in kernel methods we are trying to solve like SDPs. Yeah. Okay, so and you can see in quantum case, this is very natural, where like you could generalize. Actually we talk about like the most general case where your X should belong in the cone of Hermitian positive semi-definite matrices. So for example, our density matrix, like it's Hermitian positive semi-definite, and we have a linear constraint that trace of a row should be equal to 1. And often, like for example, this problem of Hamiltonian ground state problem, if you look at it, it's basically an SDP, like it's trace of rho H, trace rho equal to 1. It's a linear, and then a rho should be positive semi-definite. So if you, so you should look at it. It's a very convex, nice problem. Just that the issue, and for SDPs, like there is a polynomial time algorithm, but then one could say like, why Hamiltonian ground state problem is so difficult? It's a polynomial time algorithm, but the input to the problem that we have a rho is exponential size. So if you take if you feed an exponential size input to a polynomial time algorithm, it will take polynomial of exponential, which will be like exponential. So this is one of the reasons, even if this problem is an SDP, it's for a large matrix, and solving it is difficult. But landscape wise, there is no local minima problem as such. Like if you try to optimize our density matrices, because set of density matrix is is a convex set. One of the reason like for now we understand that it's coming this non-convexity in variational quantum algorithms is from the fact that they try to optimize over pure states, and set of pure state, if you like, let's take the case of qubit, it's a non-convex set. You do not have bulk, you have just the boundary, and because of that, that's the first point of this from where this non-convexity arises. And many nice, actually, fault tolerant algorithms were developed by Fernando Brandao and Drew Childs and others, Kerenidis, Prakash, and then like Gillian, and Geordie Wu and others, they have worked and developed. But there is no NIST algorithm, all of these algorithms, they are more like a style of sword algorithm, and require lot of perfect control and all. So so basically we need algorithm which can work with the currently available quantum devices. And the idea is simple, like we will take a nice ansatz like for X, and we will assume something about C and AI, and then like you will see that automatically we have like an SDP for SDP over a smaller dimensional space. So now we have a polynomial time algorithm for like a smaller size input, and because of that when yeah, like things will become simple. So like any problem, like any optimization problem can be like approached in two ways. Like you can write it as a primal problem or a dual problem. So if the primal problem is the minimization, the dual can be about maximization. And yeah, like I just included this slide just for the sake of completeness. And in many cases what happened that the primal problem and the dual problem, basically they give the same answer. So the gap between them is called the duality gap. And when the duality gap closes, nice things happen, like you can prove nice stuff. So it's an optimization where like you can proves nice like a structure, and try to answer. So this is one of the reason that SDPs, they have found lots of nice application in quantum information theory, because I mean the density matrix, they are positive semi-definite. Trace row density matrix is one. And let's say if you are interested in minimizing or maximizing a linear function, like for example some Bell expression, like Bell operator expectation or something, or some state discrimination problem, you could prove that like you could prove certain nice structures. For example, we wrote some paper on a state discrimination like a dimension witness recently, and also like a self-testing where we used ideas from graph theory and yeah, like semi-definite programming to prove analytical statements. Yeah. So yeah, just saying that it has not only optimization flavor, but it's like it's a well characterized optimization program. So you could have you could also prove nice theorems which can give you insight about the geometry of the set over which you are trying to optimize. So so basically the idea is very simple. We can have we can have an ansatz which is like classical combination of so you have a set of state like let's say psi I, and then you could put like weight, like classical weight beta i's on your quantum states, so and so this is the original problem. And for the ansatz that you have here x beta, if you try to if you assume that C is a linear combination of unitary and AI is a linear combination of unitary, then you will be able to write the above optimization program as an optimization program over beta, like this, the beta that we have here. Yeah, like and I'm writing like for a general case of the Hermes, the cone of Hermitian positive semi-definite matrices. So maybe you could assume that the X here belongs to Hermes set of Hermitian positive semi-definite matrices. Now this problem is basically not an optimization over X, but optimization over beta. And depending on how many states you include in your ansatz, let's say that if you have a nice ansatz with polynomially many parameters, then that's it. Like so this assumption is in the VQE and other algorithms also, like where they have like polynomially many parameters. But just because of a like bad mapping, they suffer from the local minima problem. Here, if you have a nice ansatz, like I mean in terms of expressibility, like you have you can you have your answer space contains a good candidate solution, then if the solution is there, you will just find it because of the I mean the landscape. And so for example like you could show I mean the ground state problem, it's you can write the ground state problem as a application of our NISQ SDP solver. And so basically we have as a byproduct of our algorithm, we have like a NISQ solver which does not suffer from the local minima problem. And I will just explain a bit more. So so the ansatz that we have is basically beta is just psi I psi j. You could have more general ansatz, like you could put theta also. And actually in the paper we also talk about like what if when you have theta and all. But yeah, like the presence of theta basically just messes up, like it leads to feedback loops, and it also leads to like this bad minima. So just for like simplicity, I only talk about the case where we only interested in beta. And then let's say your C is, the C that you have here, the C and AI, let's say they are linear combination of unitary. And this is not a bad assumption. So for example, when your H, let's say the C as H, our Hamiltonian is given as a linear combination of polystring. So I mean, in many like cases of like natural interest, our C is linear combination, given as a linear combination of unitary, or often like linear combination of polystring. And AI, for example, in the case of AI, also we assume as this constraint matrices as linear combination of unitary matrices. That's also not a bad assumption, in the sense that let's look at the ground state problem. There your AI is identity, so there is just one term, like identity. Yeah. So so if you take C and AI as linear combination of unitary, and if you take your X beta as this ansatz, then you will be able to have like if you plug it like here, and when you try to write trace of Cx, you will have like beta ij from like trace of C beta ij psi I psi j, and from there you will get like this D matrix and E matrix. Like you can convince yourself like you will get this D and E like quite naturally. And just by choice of this ansatz, you will have like you will have this expression, the first expression and the second expression, set of expressions. What remains to be shown that if beta is Hermitian positive semi-definite, is that equivalent to saying that our X is Hermitian positive semi-definite? That is also easy to see, that if let's say if beta is Hermitian, then X is also Hermitian, because like what needs to be shown that if beta is positive, then in that case is X positive or not. And you can show that if your psi I are linearly independent, then in the case when like when X beta is positive, if and only if beta is positive. Yeah, semi-definite. So yeah, so that like gives a high level like summary, like proof of the this reduction from a bigger space to a smaller space. So basically we have a reduction from a bigger space to a smaller space, where we did not lose the convexity of the problem. The problem remained convex, and yeah, and if now the solution is there, you will just find it. And so for example, like we like with like Toby, like who is a good friend and collaborator, like this guy here, we like took some random examples. I mean, obviously classically simulable, because I mean there's no other way to check it, and we went up to like a number of matrices of size 2 to the power 1000, and we could like managed to find the largest eigenvalue of the matrix. Yeah. We also apply it to many other problems also, like like Bell non-local games, graph theory, like this number called Lovász theta problem, yeah, or also the ground state problem, like which can be looked in the paper. Not only that, we also gave an algorithm for rank constraint semi-definite programming. So like, so now you want to say that your solution, let's say for example, so this is like a max cut problem, but we also say give the solution for the case where we say that the rank of the solution should be like less than equal to k. So these problems are like nice. They appear in many nice areas of research, and we gave an extension of our algorithm to rank constraint STPs also. So there is like I mean Twitter summary which can be like can give a high level picture, and it says that we present a current term NISQ algorithm for solving SDP, and as a side result we present a hybrid quantum classical eigensolver that does not suffer from the local minima problem. The landscape is and can be solved in polynomial time with the number of ansatz parameter, and every local minima is a global minima. And yeah, and then I talk about, the use of SDPs and all. We also we present NISQ SDP solver algorithm, NSS algorithm, and we also provide the extension of NSS to rank constant SDPs, as I mentioned before. And we give the like NISQ SDP based eigensolver. Unlike variational quantum eigensolver, the classical optimization program in our eigensolver is convex, can be solved in polynomial time. Yeah, like I think I mentioned it already. And yeah, like we managed to demonstrate it for maths of large size. We also like provide application for problem in quantum contextuality based graph problems and like Bell non-locality, my co-authors. And there are some like nice upcoming works with Psi, where we where we have make this observation that actually if you look at this noisy equilibrium, the non-equilibrium steady states problem, actually it's a feasibility semi-definite programming. And yeah, like we provide some results like in this manuscript. Also with Jamie Sikora, we are we have some work where we are talking about inner approximation and like to this quantum separability problem. So yeah, like you might see these works like out in some time. So yeah, that's it. I would be very happy to collaborate, and basically I think CQERE, it's a great place. I'm really fortunate to be in touch with some of the researchers from this emerging place in India. And my research interest, it's in quantum foundation, quantum computation, and optimization theory and AI. And basically at their junction. Yeah. So I have been working on various topics, and if people in the audience if they find that somehow I could contribute in their research, or somehow they think that whatever I'm working if it would be nice to join hands and do good research, I would be very happy to work with CQERE. So that's it. This completes that's all. So I believe I hope I managed to give the main message that and the message that the problem in many cases that we are trying to solve basically the ground state problem being one example is convex, and a bad map can make your problem NP hard, even though it was not NP hard to start with. So yeah, so choice of ansatz is very important, and that can simplify our life, yeah. So that's it. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, Kishore, for a wonderful talk. Are there any questions?
Hello, this is Nishant. I have a question.
Yeah.
Kishore, by the way, nice talk. My question is in general, what is the criteria for a good ansatz? Or is there any general recipe or theorem for making a good ansatz for a problem? Because you haven't detailedly mentioned about what kind of ansatz you have used. So it was just a simple equation. So I would want to know more about it.
Yeah, and that's a very good question. And I would say, when we say ansatz, the word ansatz in German means intelligent guess. So often, it's lots of, insight from the domain knowledge, has to go to this to design ansatz. In many cases, you cannot come up with a nice ansatz, for a worst case, ansatz might work for our problem because you have a domain knowledge for that problem. But for example, for Hamiltonian ground state problem, you cannot give an ansatz which works for every problem. The reason is that it's a very difficult, it's a challenging task. It's challenging even for quantum computers. So, so you should definitely have an ansatz which is, which is faithful, in the sense that it should not, faithful with respect to optimization landscape. That was the message of this, talk. So for example, when we said that, one of the messages was that, you could try to have an ansatz where like you optimize your beta and not over the angles, like, yeah. So this kind of ansatz can help you against the local minima problem. So this will work in general, but this does not say anything about whether the solution is contained in your space. And why does not say? Because like quantum complexity theory forbids you. Like you cannot make that, you cannot have one answer. So beyond convexity, I mean, like coming up with a nice ansatz, like, I mean, I think lots of research has to be done, maybe for like for a family of Hamiltonian or something, like we could say something, but coming up with one ansatz that works for all cases, like that's impossible because of like results from fundamental results from quantum complexity theory. But nonetheless, yeah, like I think it has to be understood well. And I mean, yeah, and it's a very beautiful question, and I think a lot of research is to be done to yeah, like really understanding, like, I mean, like in the NISQ era, what kind of so I mean, all of these things, right, people come up with like a particular kind of circuits, and like that has Baron Plateau, then they say, okay, let's use that kind of circuit. There are different ansatz, and one ansatz may be good, other might be bad. And then, yeah, like it seems also recently, I think there was some work, right, where the people used ideas from control theory to develop ansatz, but many of those works, they work at the level of theta, and like and this local minima problem will be present. What I mentioned that let's not optimize angles, let's optimize, like the classical weights. So but to give a small, like answer to your nice question, it's like it has to be more research is needed. Yeah, and definitely, like some the message from our work could also be helpful when you are coming a bit an ansatz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kishore. Any other questions?
I have one question. Hello. Hello, Kishore.
Yeah,
Since you told its applications in operation research, I have one question from operation research perspective. That will it give a more optimal value, or will it least time to find out the optimal value?
Okay, so you're talking about the runtime of the algorithm, right? So SDPS, like SDPS, they run in polynomial time, so it will, like, I mean, so runtime wise, like it will be okay. Like, I mean, it will run faster. I mean, but when you say, like, will it give you, like, I mean, a better value, like, I mean, so you have some optimal value, and then you have like many different suboptimal, like you can have suboptimal performance. Now what value you will get, like it depends on the particular problem that you are interested in and the answers that you have. So you will get the best answer from your like which is available in your landscape. So from your landscape, like whatever is the best answer, the optimal answer, that you will definitely get, because if it is there, you will just reach there. I mean, because it's a very nice landscape. But then sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I want to say that in terms of operation research perspective, what basically matters is getting the optimal value. So you see,
yeah.
So if we can get the optimal value from the classical computer, then what is the importance of this quantum computer then? If we get the same optimal value from the classical computer.
You're saying that you I mean, obviously we want, like, I mean, we want to tackle problem which is, like classically hard, and if you really see, like you are not getting the answer from the classical computer, like alone, you're using some data from the quantum computer. So you are calculating this, like these overlap matrices like D and EI. And with the help of the quantum computer, you are able to get some, first of all, you are not getting the optimal value. Like, I mean, that's not my claim, because getting the optimal value, that might be NP hard or QMA hard or something, depending on the problem. You will get the optimal value with respect to your ansatz. And that answer, like the answer, the answer with respect to the ansatz may not be the best answer, because let's say that you get, because your ansatz may not contain the optimal solution. It could happen, right? And
yes, that means.
Yeah. So let's say that,
so we will,
like,
will be getting a near optimal value kind of thing, which will be better than the classical.
Again, there are no guarantees, like it depends on the ansatz that you select. The guarantee that we have here is that whatever is the best optimal, whatever is the best solution that you have with respect to the ansatz, you will get it. So if you look here, when we optimize with respect to theta, even if the solution is present there, you may not get it. But here, if the solution is present there, you will get it. So that's the message. The message is that, whatever best I can harness from my ansatz, I will be able to harness it. Now, whether that, like ansatz gives me something, let's say the ansatz could be very bad, in the sense that it could even perform, like worse than a classical algorithm, that could happen because the way you selected an ansatz, that was bad. So then the choice of states that you include in your ansatz, that will very much determine the performance of the, the overall performance, with respect, optimality wise. But the idea is that, in any of these algorithms, like, forget about, let's take any, NISQ algorithm. The idea is that we want to find the best answer, not overall, because finding the, if you hit for optimality, if you're aiming for optimality, then you are aiming for basically, aiming for depression. Like you will not get there, because the complexity theory will stop you. You can only aim for the best answer with respect to your ansatz. And like the idea of many of these variational quantum eigensolver algorithms and all is that the belief that, maybe my ansatz contains the right solution. And if it contains, then the hope is that I should be able to get it. But the recent results, they suggested that even if your ansatz is good, you will not get it. And what our message is that even if your answer is there, you will, will be able to get it. But it's a very beautiful question about, whether the answer that you get. So there is this gap, so there will be, let's say, the best possible ansatz that you could have with polynomial number of parameters, and that could give you a solution. And the ansatz that you came up with, of this type, and that gave you a solution, there will be a gap. But then that gap, that could be reduced based on domain knowledge, that you could, for example, know that based on certain symmetry that, the solution should not belong in that particular sector or this particular sector, then I will include states which are, explore a relevant sector, where I expect to see the solution. Yeah, but but a priori, there are no guarantees about the suboptimality of the solution with respect to the, the global solution. Yeah, global solution, the best ever solution, where you are not putting any theta or, you are just solving at the level X. Yeah. So the message is just only at the level of, optimization landscape, like that. Yeah. But if you really want to get the best answer, then there is no other way than to solve it at the level of X. But when you solve it at the level of X, you will suffer, because the problem is can be just too big, and it could be like a QMA hard problem. Yeah, I think Sai has a question, maybe. Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
I can wait for others. I mean, we run into each other often. Sure.
So
are
does
there
that
any other
answer?
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
So,
Sorry.
can I
Yeah.
continue or some?
Yeah. Please. Okay. Somebody else.
Yeah,
has question.
Actually, I am from.
Oh, I'm sorry, but probably in the interest of time, would it be okay if we can ask if others have questions, and then if we have time, we can come back to your question. Would that be okay?
Okay. I can then probably can I mail you or?
I mean, it's okay. Like you can mail me also, but I mean, or we could, like, I mean, let's say when after this talk, I mean, okay, yeah, I mean, like after, like, like when others have asked question, I mean, like we could discuss, like, I mean, I'm perfectly awake, so
Okay.
so yeah, like I should be able to, like, yeah, like discuss, yeah, like, yeah.
So are there any other questions? Professor Sai?
Sure. Yeah, I feel guilty. I'm becoming curious. So, Kishore, one question that I have is that is there a I'm beginning to think about answers simply because of the conversation that is here. So, I could basically ask the following question, right? So I'm asking you an open-ended question, which is, I can ask the following question, which is, I could pack a lot of content into the answers. So I could make the answers basically. So is there a trade-off between the runtime or, whatever, one of the figures of merit of a NISQ device and the amount of information that I pack into the answers vis-a-vis basically trying to solve hard problems? So what I'm saying is, could it be possible that basically I can transfer all of the hardness of an NP-hard problem, let's say, into basically the answered state? And now if you can make me this magical answered state, which is an offline problem, then, VQA will run in basically perfectly reasonable, time and so on and so forth. Is there such a statement that what is the, let me also just add a random question, which maybe the first one is a bit crazy, but what is the relationship to the entanglement or some sort of resource theoretic accounting of the answered state to the to basically solving a fixed complexity problem of fixed complexity?
I think the second problem, like that might be a research problem. The first problem, like it has been studied a bit, like so Kunal Sharma, Joy Holmes, and a few people, like they answered, like partially the first problem, like in the setup of theta, and basically they have shown this trade-off between expressibility and trainability. So they showed that if your ansatz has, let's say, enough expressibility in the sense that if it can capture the solution, let's say for any general case, then it will not be trainable.
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
And yeah.
But is there an entanglement statement there? It's just a question of the parameterization of theta, right?
Yeah. And with respect to, like entanglement wise, like, I mean, I can only remember, I mean, like not with respect to complexity theoretic relation, but like just how the presence of entanglement affects training. There was a nice paper by Maria Kifarova and like Nathan Weeb, where they showed that, like if your like ansatz has lot of entanglement, then it can lead to trainability issues, because I mean, one of the, I mean, like, the way we, like get information from the quantum state is by local measurement. And if your state is like, highly entangled, then local measurements will not give you any meaningful, like answer. And basically, I mean, that's like the high level message, but you could mathematically show that like the amount of entanglement, like if you put like just too much entanglement, it can lead to the barren plateau problem, like, I mean, trainability issues and all. So, but nobody has explored so far connection with, like complexity theoretic from a flavor. Like, I mean, in the sense that if I pick a problem from, like NP or a problem from Q versus QMA and try to have, like some amount of entanglement or, any resource, like from the resource theoretic perspective. And in that case, how, like what is the interplay? I think it's a good problem to explore, because you are saying that I have problem of certain hardness, like some hardness, like, and there are problems of different hardness, and then I borrow some resource, like, like I have some, like, after once I have that resource, how difficult it will be to solve problem from one class versus another. Obviously, NP problems, they are, like relatively easier to solve than QMA problems, but like, but having how much like resource will help you, like solving one versus another, and how will it affect the trainability issues? That should be explored. But yeah, but that all that, the trainability issue occurs in the framework of theta, like in the framework of, like in our framework, which which we have also, like studied in one of our upcoming papers. The trainability issue is completely gone. Just because of the mapping, like the answers that we have.
Yeah.
So
even
so then they are.
Sorry. So even here you can make this argument, right? So if I choose, for instance, TSK, and then I choose exponential number of states, then basically I'm packing a lot of information into basically my answer set, right? But then it's perfectly trainable, so it bypasses this issue.
Yeah. So yeah, like the trainability issue is not there, and the expressibility, like if you have a lot of resource, expressibility is gone. But then you have to like give like lot of parameters. Yeah. So as you said, yeah. So that can be but the nice thing is that we talked, and like for general audience I mentioned that in theta framework there is trade-off between expressibility and trainability. In our framework, the trainability issue is gone. What you have is just the expressibility problem, and we are saying that the trainability issue is actually an artificial problem if we look at it, because as I showed initially, that the ground state problem, it's a convex landscape. So what you have, there is no trainability issue. The issue is at the level of expressibility, and when we map it to the NISQ algorithm, like in VQE, when people map it there, because of when they try to optimize over pure state, which is non-convex, the mapping leads to trainability issue. So in our mapping, we have reduced the trainability issue. We have only expressibility issue, and you can bypassing the expressibility issue will require putting a lot of resources, and yeah, there is no other way, because the problem, if problem is difficult, then there is no free lunch, right? Yeah, but maybe because of domain knowledge, you could solve nice in some cases. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, please. Are there any more questions? I have a question, but yes.
Hello. So as I was saying that I was basically from the operations research background. So from operations research background, we need to find something like quantum semi-infinite programming solvers. Only then we can do this kind of optimization things. Is that true? Means how a operation research analyst will approach these things, means for the application purpose.
Okay. So okay, like it will depend on the problem, right? Okay, so what I gave, like an algorithm which can find application in many different areas. But when you are trying to find, apply to a particular problem, then you will have to, so for example, there are certain, things, very generic, here we say that the psi I, psi j, they belong to some set. But now you're trying to solve, an operation research problem. And in that case, which psi I, psi j, whatever to include, that you will have to include on the basis of your domain knowledge. Now, quantum can give you an advantage, like because now because of the fact that like you manage to represent, like you're optimizing over, like you are maneuvering like certain entities which belong like in a very bigger dimensional space using only few knobs. So this is the idea similar to VQE or any NISQ algorithm, where we say that you have managed to represent complicated information with the use of like quantum computer. And whether like the quantum computers can give you advantage or not, that will depend on which quantum states like you used in your ansatz. Also, then on top of that, you have to, why I'm saying that like operation research, it's a blanket term, like it includes many things, right? You may not be able to like solve everything. Like, for example, suppose like many of the problems, they are like they are NP hard, and even quantum computers, they can give you some advantage, but they will not be able to solve the problem. Like so if somebody says that they can solve the traveling salesman problem, don't believe that person, like because it's just a difficult complexity theory wise. But you could have some advantage, like maybe polynomial advantage. Yeah. And yeah, so basically, but then also it depends, like in the near term, where like devices are very noisy, and like many of the polynomial advantages, like they can be very easily like get suppressed. So then you have to look at those problems from like operations research, for which you can get super polynomial advantage. So maybe there is some hope. And I'm not aware of like because I have not worked on problem by problem basis in operation research here. So you will have to like think about some problem where based on the background knowledge that there is some super polynomial advantage promised by quantum computing. So they will be the candidate problem. So first you have to identify the candidate problems. Once you have the candidate problem, then the ansatz, like which psi will come, that will depend on the domain knowledge about the candidate problem. And then you have to believe that the devices the experimentalists have built are not that bad, and maybe you can have advantage. But having an advantage, like that's like the the goal of this field. Like there are many different candidate areas, and so far, okay, maybe quantum simulation, like there are some experiment in quantum simulation where arguably, like a paper came recently where people, I think, simulated a spin liquid something. Like I did not read that in detail, like maybe some people in audience might say something, but there is no and I'm reading this part, like on this Google paper, like on cross entropy benchmarking, and they said that they have like quantum supremacy, and like just a couple of weeks, just few days back, like people managed to show that actually you could simulate that experiment in a few seconds on a single GPU desktop computer. So still everything is a bit like not very clear, and it will take a lot of like research to understand what problems to attack for quantum advantage. And then like once you understand the candidate problems, like then these follow-up questions might needs to be explored. Yeah.
Thanks. Are there any other questions? If not, I have one question. Unfortunately, it's not related to semi-definite programming. You were talking about practical quantum advantage and the advantage being unclear for VQE, right? Earlier in the slides. So I just wanted to ask you, if you're familiar with this work that I'll mention, then I just thought I could ask you for your comment. So basically there was a paper towards the end of 2020. Okay. So there was a paper towards the end of 2020 in FISREL B, where there were two groups in UK, I think, who wrote on Fermi-Hubbard model and doing VQE calculation for that, where they actually did a calculation which involved something like 1,400 odd gates, and then they extrapolated and showed that when you reach a calculation with say about 8,000 gates, then you will achieve a quantum advantage over the classical systems. And they did try to take into account as much noise as they could, keeping real devices in mind. So I'm again no expert, but I was of the impression after going through the paper quickly earlier that VQE does offer a promise of a quantum advantage, at least for the Fermi-Hubbard model, if not anything else, even with as early as 8,000 gates in a circuit. So yeah, I just thought I could ask you for your comments if you're familiar with this, because you had told earlier that the advantage is unclear.
So yeah, I mean, like these algorithms, like VQE and all, they are like, heuristic algorithms, like, there is no like, runtime guarantee and all. Definitely, like these kind of works, they are that interesting, and like, I would like to have a look and all. But so far, like, I mean, there is no result in the literature which has, like, conclusively, like, I mean, okay, so like, I mean, by running it, like on a quantum computer, has shown, I think the largest implementation of VQE might be, like 16 or 20 qubit, which is, like well within, like classical simulability. And yeah, so first of all, like you need to run for, like 50 qubit or something, like these VQE instances, to have a demonstration of practical quantum advantage. And the issue is that, like even for a few qubits, like when 10 qubits, like if you want to run it on a IBM quantum computer or whatever, it takes a few days, like, of this back and forth, and then, like, even if you have a data access, and like, I mean, it's believed that, like, I mean, maybe we might be able to get some advantage in some cases and all, but then these roadblocks, like, I mean, there is suspicion about, like trainability issues, like, when we go to large problem instances and all. And I mean, the, like, implementation as such, like, I mean, so many of the papers that I see, like, which try to say that, okay, now this implementation of which we will do better, they do it for like 5 qubit, 6 qubit, 10 qubit, like, I mean, that will not, like, I mean, yeah, like, I mean, first we need to reach in the regime of, like quantum advantage, which is beyond 50 qubits, and they are actually, like, implement these algorithms. I mean, and then only we could, like, say that, okay, maybe, like, yeah, but then obviously, like, I mean, I would like to have a look at that paper, but I believe, like, because it's based on VQE, like, I mean, they can definitely say, but you cannot give guarantees because it's a heuristic. So yeah, I mean, when we try to, like, implement many of these noise issues and the scalability issues, the Baron-Platy issues, like the entanglement induced Baron-Platy issues, like, they will arise. And I mean, and that has been one of the reasons, like, I mean, that like people could not manage to go beyond 20 qubit or something, like, I think 16, maybe 20. I'm getting hopeful, but yeah, like, thanks for, like, mentioning that paper. If you could, like, share that in Slack, maybe I could read that and we could discuss in detail, yeah, like, again, some point.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. I'll share the paper with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any more questions? If not, then let's thank Dr. Kishore Bharti for a wonderful talk and for staying awake well past midnight for this wonderful talk. So, so thank you again for your talk. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.